Hey everyone, Don with Breja ToneWorks, and thanks for watching. Today's video is about an HH style guitar that's going to have modern wiring and a phase switch. Now a lot of people have been asking about phase switching lately, so I thought I'd do a very quick video and show you how it's done. So let's get started. Alright, looking at the components, pretty simple. We've got our two humbuckers, three-way toggle switch, two volume controls, two tone controls, and one of the tone controls is going to have a push-pull pot, which is going to act as our phase switch. Obviously, we have our output jack as well. All right, I always try to identify the pot and switch lugs in order to help people with their soldering. So on the three-way toggle switch, we're going to have our S1, which is our common, or our output, S2 and S3 on the other side, along with the G for ground. On our push-pull switch, it's A1, 2, 3 on the left-hand side, B1, 2, 3 on the right. The lugs for the pot themselves are L1, 2, 3, and keep in mind I do not change the order if I invert the pot. All right, as always, we start with grounding. We are going to take a central grounding point. Doesn't matter where it's going to be. In this particular one, I'm using one of the tone pots, and you need to ground the top of each of the pots to that central grounding point, as well as to the grounding lug on the three-way toggle switch. We're also going to take a wire from our grounding point to the ring portion of our output jack. And yes, for those of you who've watched my videos, I tend to use the top of a volume pot as my central grounding point. The only reason I'm using the tone pot is it allows me to show everything right in the center rather than to try to expand the screen in order to get up to that top volume pot. You can choose whichever pot you want to use as your central grounding point. Next, we'll wire up the output jack, and all we have is the hot wire coming off of our common or S1 lugs off of our three-way toggle switch to the tip portion of the output jack. Capacitors are next. As always, these are highly subjective. You can use whichever type or value that you want for your guitar and for what you hear in your head. There is no standard. In this particular case, we're going to take one end of the capacitor and we're going to ground it to the top of the corresponding tone pot, and the other lead is going to go to L2 of that tone pot. And you'll notice both tone controls are wired exactly the same. Okay, next we're going to wire up the three-way toggle switch. And one thing to note, you'll notice that the corresponding lugs S2 and S3 go to lugs L1 on the volume pots. Now what's important is you have to decide which volume and tone combination is going to represent the bridge versus the neck. Now, normally on a Les Paul, your bottom volume and tone represent the bridge pickup, and the top are for the neck. You can wire them backwards if you want. You can have the neck be the bottom tone and volume control versus the bridge being the upper. You need to decide that and then wire accordingly with the three-way switch. Your S2 might have to go to the upper versus the S3 going to the lower. And again, it all depends on how you want your guitar wired up. You just have to remember that S2 and S3 go to L1 of both volume pots. Okay, next we're going to wire up the phase switch. And we're going to take a wire from L1 on our volume pot, and we're going to go to B3 on our push-pull switch. We're then going to make a cross. We're going to basically go from A1 to B3. And we're going to go from A3 to B1. And we're going to ground A3 to the top of that pot. Now it is important to note, you can move this pot if you don't want it to be in this particular position. You'd rather have it on the lower half or on the upper, whichever way you want. You can simply move it. All you have to do is just change the wiring to match where you want that pot to be located. Okay, now we're going to start with the pickups. Now I have this one labeled as your neck pickup, but again, it all depends on how you want your controls, which way you want them. The bottom controls to control the neck, the top one to control the bridge. It's entirely up to you. But you're going to take the hot, and you're going to go to L1 of the corresponding volume pot, and you're going to ground the other to your central grounding point. Now for the next pickup, which I have labeled here as our bridge pickup, you're going to see the hot is going to B2 of the push-pull switch, and the ground is going to go to A2 of that switch. All right, we're done. What we have is a HH style guitar with our standard two-tone, two-volume controls, three-way toggle switch, and we put a push-pull for one of the tone pots so that we can take whichever pickup we wire to it and put that out of phase with the other. And again, This entire mod is a very subjective and highly customizable mod. You can pick whichever pickup you want to change from the phasing perspective. In the end, it doesn't really matter. It's going to sound the same. But you can choose to wire the neck pickup into the phase switch. You can wire the bridge pickup into the phase switch. You can choose the volume and tone pot on the top to be the controlling for the bridge, or on the bottom controlling for the bridge, and vice versa. So you've got a lot of options with this particular mod. But in the end, it's pretty simple. Give it a try. I really appreciate you watching. If you have any questions on this mod, please let me know. You can email me at brejatoneworks@gmail.com. And remember, tone, it's not just a knob, it's sound advice. Thanks.